Hi, I'm Lawrence Freeman from Light Solutions. In this video we're going to look at how SSIS handles events both in SQL 2012 and 2008, and specifically we're going to look at a property called propagation. So the property of propagation is actually really helpful because by default it's set to true. It's enabled on an event handler of any task in your package, also on the package top level itself. So it's set to true, and what this means is that all child tasks will bubble up or pass up their knowledge or information about the event that's just happened to their parent, and that will keep escalating up until there is no more parents to be notified of the event that's occurred. In other words, until it's passed up to the top parent level package itself. So even child packages that are executed from a parent using the execute package task will keep bubbling up their information even beyond the child package itself to the parent. And this is great because it allows you to configure event handling just once, maybe by default at perhaps the top level, and that will be notified about all events that happen to child tasks during the execution of that package. But there are times when we want to disable the propagation or the bubbling up of event information to a parent. The example we're going to see is where we have a for each loop. We're going to iterate through source files, flat source files from a folder. Because of the nature of SSIS, it doesn't like surprises in metadata. It doesn't like extra columns or different data types discovered from what it was pre-warned about. So what we would like maybe is for our for each loop container, once it discovers a bad file, to not worry too much about it right now. Just move on to the next source file and keep processing good files. Bad files it can not worry about. We can deal with those at a later time. So here in SQL Server Data Tools, I've got an example package where we've got a for each loop and a sequence container, and I will talk about why I've got a sequence container in a minute, but really I've got a for each loop container and a data flow task that's going to extract some source files. Once a file has been extracted, the idea is that it should then delete that file. So if I look inside my for each loop container, you can see it's set up to point to a path, C drive, SSIS data, propagate test, and in there I'm looking for CSV files. It's going to retrieve the fully qualified file name and path and pass it into a variable that I've created, a string variable called file path. And the data flow task inside this is going to, I haven't done anything with this yet, but there's my flat file source pointing to the flat file connection manager that I've created. And if I open up that connection manager, we can just easily see there the data types and the column widths, etc., that it will be expecting. So the metadata is defined. So here is the properties of the connection manager, and we've got my text qualifier. I've said that the first row is straight into data, and if I click on these columns, we can see this is just publicly available data that we're looking at here. It's healthcare trusts. So we've got the code, I've defined it as 3 characters, we've got the name, I've defined it as X number of string characters, and so on. Now if I show you the DTSX XML of the source code of this package, if we view the code, you can see all that information about the source file, if I scroll down a little bit further, is defined in the package. So there we've got our for each loop file source, and in there I have a flat file source care trust. So there it is, and now we've got the columns defined. I can see that there is a column, sorry, just here it is. This is it. So I've got a column string, 3 characters long, 1252 as the encoding, and that is my first column, P code. The second column, we can remember, was PC name, and I showed you that that was a string, also 50 characters. So there, at design time you tell it the data types you're going to expect, and then at runtime it doesn't want any surprises. If there is a surprise, it will throw an error. Let's see how that gets handled. If I go to the Event Handlers tab, I can see, and I'm going to set it to the data flow task, I can see that if I create an error handler, and on error handler, sorry, then we have a property created called propagate, which is true. So the data flow task, as soon as it finds a bad file or metadata it wasn't expecting in the source file, it's going to propagate that information, bubble it up to its parent, which in my case would be the sequence container. It's going to tell the sequence container, hey, there's a bad flat file. What's the sequence container going to do about it? Well, it also has a propagate property of true. So it would tell the for each loop, and the for each loop would then say, well, that's an error. I've reached my maximum error count of 1. The whole package is going to fail. So I don't want the for each loop container to know about any bad files, because I want it to carry on and iterate through to the next file. So that's why I've put this intermediate parent container, really. I'm going to set on the sequence container a maximum error count of 0, which means unlimited, and I'm going to set the propagate property to false on this sequence container. So in the event handler there, I choose the executable, which is going to be the sequence container. I'm going to say on error. Notice we don't have the propagate property yet because I haven't said I want an event handler, but I have now that I've clicked it. On error of the sequence container, propagate false. Keep it to yourself, effectively bury your head in the sand, don't tell anybody about it, carry on merrily as if there was nothing gone wrong, and move on to the next file. So that's the beauty of configuring the propagate property. We can process good files, bad files, your package will succeed, and you will only, here I've said only delete the file on success, so that won't be success, so it won't have deleted the file. You can then go back the next day or after the package is executed, fix the problem in the file with the surprise bad, if you like, metadata. So there we've seen how to control error handling. Remember, create a sequence container. It's a good idea to group multiple child tasks that you want to perform, and then you only have to set the property on the sequence container. Propagation false, maximum error count 0, and this prevents bubbling up. So please have a look at our website, lightsolutions.co.uk. There where we provide Microsoft training, and we have multiple free SQL videos for you to look at, as well as this is where we will place our source code and source packages for you to download and have a look at for yourself. So thank you very much for listening. Again, my name is Lawrence Freeman from Light Solutions.